a thought-provoking podcast that sheds light on the challenges faced by young people living in urban areas. We highlight the resilience and creativity of young leaders who are finding innovative ways to overcome the challenges our young people are facing, inspiring listeners to take action to support them. This is A Different Cloth.
Hey everybody, welcome back to A Different Cloth podcast. Hey look, this whole season we are highlighting and emphasizing people who are rescuers. What does it mean to be a rescuer? And so today we're going to do something a little bit different. You're going to hear from 3 different people who are all a part of the RAG team here in San Bernardino. And we're going to hear their story. We're going to hear some of the work that they do and really what it took for them to become a rescuer. So tune in, lean in, engage the stories, like, comment, subscribe, share, all the things. But thank you for joining us today. First up, I got my boy, one of my friends for almost 10 years.
Not 10 years.
About 10 years is none other than the E5 man of God and Rashad Schaefer. And so welcome, Rashad.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks for being on A Different Cloth today.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
And this is all a part of me clout chasing with you, you know, so.
That's crazy. He got more influence than I do, but all right.
No, I'm messing with you. But hey, no, seriously, thank you. Just got a few questions and it'll be kind of a shorter episode, but let's dive in, man. And so, only because we got 2 other people to get
Got it.
So,
Okay.
So, but the first question, Rashad, like, man, at what point in your life did you realize, man, like, I want to be a rescuer? I want to be one that helps to go after other people who are struggling.
I could be honest on here, right?
I think so.
Okay. I honestly did not wake up and want to be a rescuer. I think for me, I wanted to work retail my whole life. I saw myself being a manager at a Foot Locker somewhere, putting the homies on a job, giving discounts, and just being a resource to people needing a job. Everybody wanted to work at Foot Locker.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be that person who was like, you know what? I got you. I'll give you a chance. I'll give you an opportunity. That's what I've always wanted to do. It wasn't until about 9.5 years ago, where I worked for a group home. I honestly did not want to be there. I just heard the pay was good. I was getting like $2,000 a paycheck, but it was because people were quitting because they couldn't handle it.
Wow.
And so I heard the money was good. And so I gave it a shot, and somehow the kids impacted me more than I impacted them.
Damn.
And so I was able to hear their story, be there for them, and to have similar stories but completely different outcomes. These kids are 11, 12, 14, in and out of jail, on drugs, parents left them, or whatever their story was. And to have some of that same upbringing, but I've never been arrested, thank God, and I never had this story of I was strung out on drugs. I was like, dang, like, I need to be able to be a bridge or show them the other side of what life could be like.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's honestly how it started. And then it just picked up from there. And hearing the stories of them coming back, because I tried to get back into retail after.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a whole nother episode. But I tried to go back to retail, but it somehow didn't open up for me. So I stayed working with youth, and I fell in love with it. So.
Wow. I love the concept of what you just mentioned, because I think so many times as a rescuer, or when people think of, I'm going to be the rescuer, you think I'm going to go and make the impact. But every real rescuer will tell you 10 times out of 10, we're impacted more from the students we're working with than we're actually probably impacting. And so we're learning the stories. We're inspired by their grit, their fighting for their future, you know. And so to hear that that's where it shifted for you, like you were kind of like, I'm just gonna take a job, and then you heard their stories, and I was like, oh shoot, they got me, you know?
Right. No, it was absolutely that. And it's like you walk in trying to rescue people, and then they end up rescuing you first, and it's like,
come on, bro,
might as well.
Yeah,
I'm here now. So and it's not a bad thing. I think what's mind-blowing to me is sometimes we have to have this story of like, I need the light, or I need this grand entrance to impact people. And there wasn't that for me. I did not want to do it.
Yeah, I love it.
And so, but that, I feel like every apostle didn't want to in the Bible, or every real leader at first was like, nah, I'm cool. You want me to do what? Nah, I'm good. But yeah, it flipped the script on me, and I'm excited to be here.
That's great. Let's talk about how your story and RAG intersected, and what does that mean to you? What has it meant to you, if anything? And but what is it like for you to be on the RAG team here, and what's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I heard you guys were hiring, and I'm just like, kind of true. Kind of. No, it really was. I was at Amazon, and but I think for me, because I knew you before, and I knew you had a heart for the youth. You have a heart for the next generation. I've always looked at what you were doing. I've been at the different takeovers and manhood camps, and so I saw what you were doing. And so there was always that piece of my heart that was like, man, like if the right moment opened up, I got to get in. And so I feel like it was just, not to be all super deep, but it was time. It was a divine moment, or, whatever you want to call it. But I think it just made sense. Yeah. And so for me, to your question is, I feel like it made sense. And it didn't totally make sense. Yeah. There were some parts where I was questionable, but I had to look at the bigger picture, and I had to realize, like, okay, it doesn't have to make sense, but God, whatever you're going to do, I trust that you're going to fill in the blanks or fill in the gaps. And he's been ordering my steps ever since. And so
good, man. And you obviously have made a big impact here, not just with the students, but with our staff, with our team here. And so thank you for that. Give me real quick before we go into this third question. How has RAG impacted Rashad? How has you being here made any level of a difference in your life?
Oh man, I was very closed off at first. I was very selective of who I opened up to. But I think RAG has impacted me in a way of, I don't have to know you for 10 years to open up. I don't have to be in the trenches since day one to really open up and be accountable and hold other people accountable. I've learned that stories matter. Yeah. And so, because I feel like, I don't know you for 10 years, so I don't really have to go there with you. But there were moments where I had to step out and go there for people to go there with me. And then there were moments where other people just went there, and it's like, hey man, like there's something about you that I just want to share this. And I was like, dang, if they're willing to go there, then I should be able to be willing to go there. And the relationships that I built in RAG, in the office, have impacted me on school campuses. Wow. Because of how we talk, like you can't expect a student to go where you're not gonna go. Yeah. And it took that here. Like my first year, I was like, we'll see how that works. And I made a decent impact because I'm a very open person. Sure. But there was just certain things that I just wasn't gonna share. But it's when I did that in the office first, when I was talking about like my dad, my relationship with my dad, my relationship with my mom, my brother, and all the different things, like I wasn't gonna share that with students at first. Yeah. But once I did, then I noticed how that shifted with my relationship with the students. Yeah. And they were willing to tell me the stuff that they never even told their therapist. Yeah. And so, I feel like RAG has changed what accountability really looks like for me. Okay.
Also, what I hear you saying is like it's helped some of your walls to come down in relationships, and I think that's just a really incredible thing. And to me, it speaks to being a rescued rescuer, right? Absolutely. It's really hard to go there with people if you got walls up that are keeping. Walls are interesting because they keep people out on both sides. Right. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's ironic. But last thought would be, man, tell us, you've been here how many years now?
2.5.
2.5 years.
February will be 3.
Oh, shoot. Jesus. All right, you've been here 3 years almost. Give us a story of impact. What's been your highlight impact moment of you working with a student, you being a rescuer in the life of a young person?
Man, I'm going to probably say one of my students last year, she was a knucklehead. Like she was a problem child. She knew she was a problem child. Yeah. Failing most of her classes. She was an 8th grader, and she was not on track to graduate. And so I had one-on-ones with her, pulled her out of class, talked with her and counselors, and I'm like, what are you gonna do? And I had to have a real conversation with her, because she wanted a future.
Yeah.
She talked about, when she was in RAG, all the things that she wanted to do and all the things she wanted to see change. And I was like, it sounds good, but with what you're doing now, where are you going with that? If you never changed, if you stayed the same, would you reach your destination or your goals?
Yeah.
She said no. And I said, so then what's gonna change? What has to change about you first? And she was like, I really don't know. And she started crying, and I'm like, I see the tears, but that doesn't help. Like, you still gotta answer the question.
Suck it up.
Right, like, walk it off. But I think what really impacted me the most, because after RAG, we would see each other in passing, and she would tell me that she's doing better, but some students would just say it just to say it. But I think it was at graduation when I went to, I'm trying not to get emotional. It was at her graduation, and she was like, oh, Mr. Rashad, like she ran. And I was like, oh my God, hey, she had her certificate. Man, and she said she did it.
Come on, bro.
Hey, edit that out. But yeah, so yeah, that was the moment when she said she did it. So
thank you, bro, for fighting for students' futures. There's stories like that, right, that don't always get highlighted, but you were a disruptor to the path that she was going on, and in all the right ways, for all the right reasons. She was able to accomplish something because of your yes. And to me, that is like the epitome of what it means to be a rescuer. And I know there's tons of other students that you've impacted, because we hear the stories from the schools, and we know how relational you are. But just, man, from my heart, like, thank you for being a rescuer and for just being locked in with young people and fighting for their future. And it's an honor to be able to do this with you, and that our paths crossed 10 years ago, and that we get to like do this thing and really go after a generation. And so I just want to say thanks, man, for all that you're doing and for all that you fight behind the scenes to be able to keep doing it. That matters. So love you, appreciate you.
Love you too, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. So you could have picked anybody, but here I am. I'm
glad you're on the team. But all right, look, it's hard to pull out of that, because I feel like, man, that was such a moment of impact, and that's not something we take lightly. It's not, you can't just be like, oh, this life was changed, and then you're like, okay, what's next? It's like, no, it's like, dang, she did it, and that matters, Oh yeah. And so, I appreciate you. We are getting ready to jump into our next person, but there are people out here watching, and probably similar to you, they are just working a job. They're just, trying to do retail or, whatever it is, or just doing a group home because the check, right? What would you tell somebody if you could go back to yourself back then, knowing where you are now and the impact you're making now? What would you say to yourself back then that you can like literally look in the camera and say to somebody who may not be a rescuer yet? It's that camera.
Right, I'm like,
yeah.
I feel like what I would say to my younger self is that every moment that you are in is not in vain. Everything has a purpose. And if you wake up every single day, whether you're in retail, whether you're at the gas station, whether you sell candy on the corner. Every day, wake up with a desire for purpose. And I can guarantee you, purpose will find you before you find it. And you just got to be open. You got to be open. You have to have an open mind, open heart, open ears. Because purpose isn't going to be wrapped in a bow and with a check attached to it. Sometimes purpose is going to have frustration. It's going to have confusion at times, or frustration, disappointment. But if you stick to the script, if you stick to what your desire and purpose is, you'll win every time.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for all that you're doing. Appreciate you. All right, we're going to bring in our next guest, and excited for this second conversation. All right, welcome to our second guest, BJ Walker, a.k.a. Mr. Snake Guy. Hey, thanks for jumping on the pod with us today, and excited to just talk a little bit about you and how you became a rescuer. Our story is actually kind of funny, how you got here.
Yeah.
Happened at a New Year's Eve party, and then the rest has been history. And so, real quick, at what point in your life did you realize, or did the light bulb come on of like, oh man, I want to be a rescuer. I want to go and make an impact?
For me, it was more so like after high school to like early college. I think that's when I had my biggest impact with my mentors and saw like the effect of me connecting with students. Pablo was one of my students I had at Abundant Living Youth Camp, and I think just seeing the experience of like touching people like a Pablo, touching the other students within the ministry, and like the impact it had on them. And it was all kind of based on the impact somebody had on me.
Yeah. Let's real quick talk about the impact somebody had on you, because I think so often when you become a rescuer, it is a direct response to the fact that I was rescued. Yeah. And I know just hearing some of your story that sounds like it resonates with you, if somebody rescued you. And yes. So can you just tell us a little bit about the impact that your mentor actually did have on you and how you were rescued?
He had a tremendous impact. So my mentors that I mostly spent time with were William Franklin. He's a vice president at Cal State Dominguez. And then Matt Smith. He's like a executive coordinator. I don't know his exact position, but he works with a few different programs over there right now as well. But both of them were mentoring in a program called DMX. It was about young men out in the IE who needed a little direction. So we went through kind of like similar to Success Club, different classes about success, about where you want to be, who you should be. And those two were like the two that gravitated towards me and my friend group the most, and really invested a huge amount of time in our lives. I used to go to, I call him Uncle Will. I used to go to Uncle Will's house. We would work out, tell jokes. He was the one who really inspired me to get back into going to church consistently. And then even seeing my potential in working with students and my ability to be there for others. So I think it was the time they saw in me and how much they were willing to invest in me that really like changed my life.
Yeah, I love that, because so many times we think investments, we think money, we think, hey, give, or I can give to an organization like RAG or whatever, right? But for you, the biggest investment was their time into you, and the return on that investment and what you're living out now is really mind-blowing. It's like, because I heard the stories of how you were back then, and you was kind of out there, right?
Yeah,
just to be
very much,
honest, and so, but to see, man, somebody say, "Hey, I'm gonna make an intentional time investment in your life," and the change that made for you, and now what you're able to do. Talk about how now that you've changed, now that you've been on this path. I know you're a super hard worker. You had like 8 jobs at one point. Kidding, kind of, but like
it was like 3 or 4.
3 or 4 jobs, and so providing for your family, and then we meet. Well, we met before, but and then we reconnect at this New Year's thing. How did you and RAG intersect, and what was that process like for you?
What was interesting, like me and my wife were already talking about like kind of scaling me back to getting a single job as opposed to the two I had and the amount of time I was gone. And so, yeah, just having the conversation with you at the New Year's party and hearing about the things you guys were doing at RAG. I would always see the videos online, and I never knew past the assemblies and kind of the hype and stuff. But to talk about like the impact, the curriculum, the goal of it, really like hit home for me, and it kind of reignited a fire in me that I had let die out some. I think the idea of working and providing for my family made me move away from being there for anybody outside of my family. And so after we had that conversation, it really, me and my wife talked about it. She was saying yes from like the moment we started talking about it. So that was the wild part. Cause I'm like, I ain't even considered it yet. She's like, babe, take the job. Like, bro, you don't even know what it is yet. But yeah, it was really like hearing about the impact you guys were having on students. And for me, it started with the idea of, okay, well, I can just go help students again. And then I think getting in here and seeing how different it was, the type of students and the amount of time we had to impact them, I think changed my perspective on like just impacting students, but really pushing forward the mission of RAG, because I see in the school system how many kids are slipping through the cracks, and kind of because of the environments they grow up in, and not feeling like anybody believes in them or invests in them, or I just been let down too many times to give anybody a try. I think really reignite that fire in me.
Wow. Even you saying that to me is like, it's just bringing up so many thoughts of, this is the importance of finding the right rescuers to join the fight. Because, you know, there are some people that would say, hey, I'm just impacting kids, right? Or I'm just working with these students. But for you to see the bigger picture and the kids that are falling through the cracks, and I feel like you're not just doing a job, but you're capturing the heart of what Rescue a Generation is all about. And I think you embody that anyways, just from what I know of you. And I've actually seen you on the campus, and you're just super dope. Real quick, I want to say this, because sometimes our listeners are like youth workers, and one of the things that we do a lot in our programs is we get kids to talk to us and open up to us, and like that's like a real strength of ours. Yeah. And it was fascinating to me that you had a class that was not, or you had people in a class that was not opening up to you, and your commitment to communicate to them whether or not they opened up to you via like verbally. Yeah. Can you just tell us, you know what I'm talking about, right? Can you just like this? I feel like this is a cheat code. Like, you know what I mean? Like, can you give us the cheat code of like, number one, like why'd you do that, or what prompted you to do that? And then what was the impact of that? So explain what I'm talking about, because I'm talking in code right now. Yeah. Give them what I'm talking about, and then tell us why and the impact of it.
For the context, we provide journals, or the school provides journals, whichever we can do for the students. And our goal is, okay, we'll have them write for our assignments and different things that we're talking about, and just kind of see where their head's at, what experiences they've had. And I kept running into the issue at times of like still people getting used to you, or just having social anxiety, or I don't want to talk in front of people at my school because then my business is going to get out there and all of that. And so I would get more students that were writing their journal. And so I was like, all right, well, let me just see if I can find another way to access them, because they're not giving me any communication, but they're supplying the journal. And so I started messaging them back in their journal. So I would leave a little sticky note, and I would tell them like, hey, after I write back, just, put it back in the sticky note so I know you saw what I wrote and, you said something. And from then it kind of like made a huge impact, because students who wouldn't start talking felt comfortable because they felt like they knew me, or, I've shared enough about this in my journal that I can say it out loud. And then seeing some of the other students get vulnerable about the stuff we share in their journal, I think just kind of impacted that whole classroom and majority of my classrooms.
Wow. I just love the intuitiveness of you being able to be innovative enough to say, hey, you may not be talking verbally, and probably for a lot of reasons, but that doesn't mean we're not communicating, and I can write back to you, and then we have a dialogue happening, even if you're not verbally saying something in the classroom. So I think that's incredible. You've been here how long now?
9 months.
9 months, okay, so fairly new. Tell me a story of impact from you being on the campus that you've seen, a moment you had with a student, something that you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so my moment of impact isn't necessarily a winning moment. So for me, it was another kind of reason to really, really push, and also that thing that helped click for me. But so I had a student. She had been raped by her brother.
Oh wow!
And she got pregnant, and she had to get an abortion, and then she had to move because after her brother went to jail, her parents wouldn't move from the home that she was raped in. And based on the litigation of it, it was like she isn't safe there, so you guys either have to move or she's gonna go to foster care. So she went to foster care, and of course felt like nobody's really there for me. Now I'm having a split time with my family, and she came into the program and we spent a lot of time together, and she would talk to me about how she's trying to improve, she's trying to get better, and she used to vape a lot. And so I told her, like, look, you got to cut back on these vapes. They're killing people. It's just so dangerous. You don't know what's out there. You don't know whose vape you're hitting. Y'all just pass around vapes all day, and you don't know what you can get from it. And so she's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to give it up. And so she had gave it up, and she had went about a week and a half without doing it, but she had a tough day. And then she, just out of stress, was like, okay, I'm going to hit a vape. Like, I just need to kind of, it soothes me type of thing. And she hit a vape that was laced with fentanyl.
Oh, no.
And she literally almost died. They said she was turning purple, like barely on the brink of like living. And so she got moved from her foster home. I never saw her again. But that was like my reason to fight.
Come on.
Because they deserve better. So that was my impact story, because too many times that could have been me.
Wow. Thank you, bro. Man, it's so tough because, you know, when I hear it, when I ask the question, I'm thinking a turnaround story, a win, a celebration. But man, the losses that we see, that we experience, that we get to listen to, it's the very thing that makes us fight harder.
Yeah.
Because to rescue a generation is no small feat. It's not I feel like if it was a cute or sexy thing to do, then, you know,
would do it.
Everybody would do it, right? But like, man, we're fighting, and you're fighting for not just her, even though I know you're still fighting for her, and we are still praying for her, right? But like, you're fighting for her, but you're also fighting for the hundreds that will come after her, that you can't actually stop from hitting another vape.
Yeah.
You know, because where there is one that the enemy will try to grab a hold of, there's 100 more that God will raise us up to use to be able to impact at a whole different level. And so this is the first I'm hearing of that story. And man, thank you for fighting, bro. Thank you. And I know you gave up a lot to even be at RAG, and you and your family, and how y'all have just navigated this season. And I'm grateful, BJ, that I don't even want to say like that you're a rescuer. I'm grateful that you're a fighter, bro.
Thank you, man.
Because there's people that would experience something like that and be like, I gotta tap out. I'm done. I can't do this no more. And for you, it almost anchored you more into the work we're doing. And so thanks for fighting for young people. Thanks for fighting for our team here. Thanks for fighting for the work we do in the organization. And just super grateful for you, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I'm thankful for the opportunity too, and for a place where I can go reach and help others.
I'm going to end it kind of the same way I did with Rashad. I imagine there's people out there that either are in youth ministry or have worked with students, and you're like, maybe they haven't taken the L like you just did, right? And what would you tell them about the importance of the work that we do and that they should be doing? And you just look in one of the cameras right there and just talk directly to the youth worker that's, maybe they're at a church and they're volunteering, and be like, well, what would you say to them directly about why it's so important for them to go after young people?
I would say it's so important to go after young people because, one, they are our future generation. But I think, two, it's so many that are easily lost because of where they grew up, how they grew up, what they experienced. And without us going to get them, the enemy does. And after he keeps them, it just wretches the world more and more. And there's so many people who have the ability to change the world, but if nobody sees that in them, they'll probably never see it in themselves.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ooh, these are rough, man. I'm like, what do you do with this? What's give me the young lady's first name.
Miranda.
Miranda.
Yeah.
Let's just pray for her real quick. Okay. Father, thank you so much for Miranda. Thank you, Father, that whatever the campus was, God, that we came in contact with her, and that BJ has had a profound impact on her life, Father. And even though it feels like we took a L here, God, we know that some plant, some water, but ultimately you see the harvest. And so, Father, we thank you for every seed that was planted, every bit of watering that BJ did. Now, Lord, we pray for a harvest in Miranda's life. Lord, would you send the people? Would you rally people around her to lift her up, to fight for her on her behalf, God? Would you send the churches? Would you send the youth workers? Would you send the leaders to come in contact with her, to love her, Father, right where she is, God, no matter where she's at in the system? Lord, would you give her the right foster care? Would you give her the right home? Would you literally handpick the people, Father, that you want to surround her? We pray that you would reach in and rescue Miranda, Father, and that what BJ planted of love and hope and dignity, God, and consistency, Father, ultimately that you'd get a harvest in Miranda's life, and that we'd see the fruit of what happens when somebody disrupts somebody in the middle of their mess. And so thank you for what you're doing in our life. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man.
Thanks for hanging with me.
Appreciate you, my
guy.
man.
All right, what's up, Jocqui? Thanks for hanging with me today. I'm excited. We've known each other for quite a while.
A minute.
And to be able to know each other in this context and this capacity, I think is really dope. From my perspective, at least. So,
Same.
All right, cool. No, but cool. So we're obviously talking about being rescuers. We met at the church. I know that you've done a lot of stuff with coaching and sports and things like that. We hooped a few times together. That's always a blast. But tell me, at what point in your life did you realize, like, I either want to be a rescuer or I am a rescuer?
I'm not sure if I can date it back to a specific point, but I know it's all evolved out of the place of being the oldest sibling.
Okay.
And so being the older brother, for me, I kept trying to, or not even kept, I'm always trying to be something for my younger siblings that I wish that I had. Okay. You know, as the older sibling, I feel like I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And I feel like because of that, seeing my siblings, my goal was always to try to help them figure out what they're trying to do or things that they are just into, try to help push them into purpose. So that's kind of what got me into, that was like what started it. And then I got into sports and stuff like that, which also just grew it like exponentially.
Okay. If you had to, from that perspective, because I think Obviously, when you think rescuers, you think like the big, like save the day. You think the, tragedy is striking and people are stepping in. Mm-hmm. But I would absolutely say that a sibling could be a rescuer, a son could be a rescuer, a father could be a rescuer, right?
Yeah.
In the context of family or those kind of like, what did it look like, or how would you describe a rescuer in that context, right? Here's why I said, on schools, it's evident. Hey, give us some of your most challenging students. We're gonna help, right? But in the family context, it's just the family. So you're just doing your everyday life. Mm-hmm. So what did that mean for you to be a rescuer in that context?
For me, I think it was oftentimes seeing people or siblings, family, cousins get comfortable. I feel like in my family, as we've gotten older, a lot of people have gotten a lot more wiser. So then it's almost like because the generation above me struggled a lot, they did a lot to make sure that my cousins in our group didn't struggle as much. But of course, growing up in a really rough area, I still experienced a lot at the same time. So for me, it was just this thing of, because we've all been put to a place that our parents didn't have to experience, it caused a lot of complacency, I feel like, in each generation. And now that I'm looking down to the next generation, like my siblings, I see even more complacency, where it's just kind of like almost no drive. It's just kind of like everything's cool, like we good, like, stuff is provided for and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm like, what do y'all want to do though? Like, what is it that you want to do in life so that you don't, and the thing that I'm always trying to save them from specifically is like, I don't want y'all to get so comfortable that y'all just get depressed, or y'all just kind of in this place of like, you thought everything was cool and then the time passed and it's just like you wake up and you realize you ain't really been doing too much.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm always trying to help them just get into purpose and try to figure out, what is it that you like to do? I don't care what it is. How can we, that's what I talked to my mom about. And it's like, how can we invest into y'all? Yeah. You into cooking? Let's go buy you something. You into this? Like, let's try to get you into a class about it. But really trying to invest into, like I said, it started with like the younger siblings and even some of my cousins and stuff like that. So
you said a lot in that, man. But the idea of rescuing people from complacency is like, yes, because we think rescuing, you think, man, people downtrodden, down and out. I think one of the greatest enemies that this generation is facing is not some blatant enemy. It's not some, and don't get me wrong, I know they're facing a lot of like the depression and anxiety but I think apathy is one of the biggest like enemies of this generation, and their complacency in just how life is and very nonchalant, and it takes a rescuer to step into that context and be like, no, that's not okay. Mm-hmm. What else could there be? How else could we fight for this? And so, to be clear, and it's come up in the last couple of conversations that, man, being a rescuer is fighting for something more for a person. And that can be in a lot of different contexts. But I love how knowing your heart for your family and how you've navigated those relationships. I love how God would take that and still use you in a context like this. Mm-hmm. And because your demeanor is a lot more laid back than mine, and because I think like I'm always like, no, like we like, but Jocq is super like, but like I love it because you don't have to be a certain type of way to be a rescuer, to be a disruptor, to be somebody. Let's go there for a second before we go into like your rag story. Let's talk about your laid back demeanor.
Oh yeah, I was just about to.
And how that plays into you being a rescuer. And what are your thoughts on that? Is it hard sometimes for you to imagine yourself as a rescuer being so laid back? Or how does that give you an advantage even? Or yeah.
Yeah, to even speak to that, I feel like it's a gift for me in the sense that I've just been around a lot of chaotic situations. And I feel like oftentimes for me, I've been able to weather the storm or kind of be that still piece that, as everything is happening all crazy, I feel like for me, I'm able to still think in those times when everything is looking all chaotic and crazy. And I feel like it's helped me in a lot of cases in the simple fact that, like I said, I can still think, you know, and not be slow paced, you know, because laid back I feel like often gets the demeanor that slow,
dragging
you know,
your feet,
dragging your feet towards a certain thing, but oftentimes it's just like I said, for me, it just gives me that time to think, or I could think in those chaotic situations and still be able to like make a move. And I feel like that has just helped just in life, especially with the upbringing and growing up in a crazy environment, being able to just be able to think when everything's going crazy. I feel like has probably saved my life.
Yeah, that and the calming presence that you are around people. Like I love this because, man, so many people are like, man, Jose, I see what you're doing. I see how you're out there and you're doing your thing. And I'm like, yeah, but it don't take all that. Like, you know, you just got to be present in the life of people. Chaos is going to happen. Chaos is inevitable, right? But your ability to stand in all of that, think clearly, find a solution, navigate that, I just think is really dope. Let's talk about how your story and the RAG story has merged. And then what is that meant to you from your perspective? How have you just been able to embrace that?
Yeah, it's funny because I talk about this, you know, I've mentioned it many a times, but I feel like RAG as a company and my purpose, they just aligned in the sense that RAG gave me a lot of language for what I was doing before I got to RAG. And so, you know, it started with sports, but I realized as a basketball coach that oftentimes you get the most out of a athlete when you're able to kind of fix some of the, not even fix, but help with some of the internal stuff that's going on or internal stuff that's going on. And so what I learned even in that process was a lot of times, a lot of parents would ask me to stay with their kids even after we do a season, simply for what I didn't know at the time was the life coaching aspect. So I didn't know that's what I was doing until I came to RAG, and RAG gave me language for it. But I learned, like I said, during the basketball season, that spending intentional time with students and student athletes, that sometimes they just needed somebody to listen to them and kind of like just process some things with them, challenge them, ask them the hard questions. And oftentimes, as crazy as this may sound, they became better athletes, not because of more what they did at practice. It was all like a mental thing, that like a blockage that was stopping them from performing as an athlete. And then you talk to them and you be there for them, then they start playing better. And it's like, it's the craziest thing.
Wow.
And so, like I said, when I got to RAG, it was just like, oh, this makes sense. Like, this was just perfect timing. And it all just made sense, like I said, because RAG just gave language to what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is what life coaching is. I know I was, you know, in my mind, all I thought coaching was attached to like sports.
Sure.
Right. And I'm like, oh, so this is the part that I guess the parents, when the season was over, wanted to keep me around their athletes for, even when it had nothing to do with basketball. Sometimes they're just like, I just want you to be there as a mentor for them. So in my mind, it was just mentor until I got here, and I was like, oh no, this was life coaching, but I had no idea.
Wow.
So it just all aligned crazily.
Your analogy of an athlete and to remove the blockage and to enhance the performance. And I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, man, such is life. Right? In every context, in every situation, every type of person, if you can remove the blockage, you can enhance the performance, right? And I know we see that a lot on campuses, the students we work with. Man, there's a ton of blockages, and some more than others. Some is like, there's a little tweak, like, hey, let's just shift that and you're going to be way better. And then some is like, yo, there's a lot happening there. And so I love that analogy in the light of coaching. What for you has been different? Like, I know a lot has been highlighted of like, you're already up to this, you're already doing this. What's changed for you? And if nothing, right? And I'm not trying to force an answer, right? But like, what's changed for you since being at RAG? How has RAG impacted Jocqui?
RAG has definitely pulled on me being more vulnerable with people. I feel like I've done a lot of stuff just like in isolation, and just, you know, I talked about it earlier, just about being the older sibling and low-key like just the man of the house, because it was just like me, my mom, and all of my younger siblings. So there was a level of me just being alone a lot, you know, and just trying to figure it out on my own. And then I get into this context, which, you know, our bread and butter is vulnerability. So I had to start to open up to people, invite people into my space. and stuff like that, which I'm in a season right now where I'm trying to do friendships better, and do friendships overall, because I realized recently that I wasn't really being a great friend to people. Like,
wow.
I got accustomed to being, we talked about earlier me being the laid back person, but I attracted a lot of chaotic, broken people who just needed a calming person,
wow.
Need Jesus.
Yeah,
but, but they, I had this thing where I thought I had a lot of friends, but in reality, it was a lot of like mentorship, coaching, pastoring happening. And I thought all of that was my friends until I realized I can't really go to these people. They don't really check in on me. They just come to dump.
Yeah.
And that was that. So being that rag has like really opened up my brain, from the place of just being vulnerable. And it also just helped me in the places that I was already doing, from the sense that now I feel like I'm a way better listener to people, and I can decipher when people just maybe need somebody to talk to. They just need that ear to listen to them versus trying to be a problem solver or something all the time. Like, I'm able to just listen, but at the same time now with my friendships that I'm really trying to be intentional with, I'm able to be vulnerable. Okay. And that's a first for me.
I love that, bro. Thank you. And I think so much of vulnerability is a part of our own healing process, right? It's, I think it was with Pablo where we were talking about like how pride is a direct tell if somebody is healed or not. Yeah. Right. And so when people are leaning into vulnerability, when people are open to being open and honest, and I think, man, it shows that there is a level of healing taking place, because you can't heal from what you're not willing to like reveal or expose. And so I love that. And I love that you're a healed healer and a rescued rescuer. You're on campuses. You've been here how long now?
I think it's like 2 years.
2 years now. Wow.
I've been here.
So you've been here 2 years. I'm sure you have, honestly, a lot of impact with students that you've been on the campus with. But what's a moment that just stands out to you of like, you're like, man, like, I know that I was placed here for that?
Yeah, for me, like 2 students come to mind in particular. Very similar situations, but they're in 2 different districts, opposite. One's middle school, one's high school. But oftentimes when we go on these campuses, we talk to, these liaisons, these assistant principals, all of these people, and sometimes they give you like a little profile on the student. And in both cases, I'll talk about the middle school one. I'll just lean more on that one, so I'm not telling 2 stories at the same time. But I had this middle school student out in Corona district, and I get the rap on this one student. Like, she wasn't in the class yet. I guess she was just transferring schools, whatever the thing, whatever, or what have you. And I just get the rap like, oh, nah, like this student is crazy. She's bad. She's disrespectful. This, that, all of these different things. Failing classes. They're just giving me the whole rundown. And so I meet this student, and yeah, I can see that the student, when you grow up how we grow up, you could look and be like, who's about it, and who's just, putting on the front. And so I could tell the student they were about it, and got to spend, of course, I want to say they came maybe like week 2, week 3. So I ended up spending like 7 to 8 weeks with this student. But during that whole process of being there with them, I've seen them just literally evolve as a student. Like they literally just changed all of the things that, teachers were saying were bad about them. And it came from a place of being able to challenge her and things of that nature. But she went from like failing all of her classes to passing all of her classes. And then it got to a point where we get to the end of the program, and she couldn't make the celebration because I think she had to get like a booster shot or something like that. But then she came back to the program because that was like the fall semester, so I was back in the spring, and she just came back every week. Hey, I got that grade up that I was telling you about. Wow. And this student, like I said, they went, got all of their grades together, ended their middle school career off on a high end, and now they're in high school. And I got to see her again because, we just on all the schools. And she's doing really good in high school right now. So it's like but like I said, if you could been in the conversation when they described this student to me, you would have thought this student was the worst student in the history of students. Like they were that bad. And that was just not my experience. All because she just needed some attention.
Man.
And somebody to be there for her.
Bro, I just think the power of perspective. because two people can see the exact same student with the exact same behaviors. You're not denying what they said. You're like, no, I saw it. That was there. That was very much how that student was, 1,000%. And that student still can perform, can still do well. And with the perspective of saying, like, man, I actually still believe in this student. I'm not going to write them off. I'm not going to, give up or label them even, because I think sometimes those labels we throw on students is like, bam, you're going to be this. Now, this is the category you fall under. But to hear even in a year later of after the program is done and in high school, you were able to disrupt that student's status quo. And if you didn't, I would imagine that this year in high school would have been a repeat of what she experienced in the middle school era, right? Like, because so many times, like, unless there's a disruptor, you don't see the shift or the change overall. And so, what a dope story. To me, I'm like, I want to go tell that story to the district. I want to be like, hey, y'all, look at this story. You know what I mean? And so, man, what would you say to people who? Let's talk about perspective, okay? What perspective did you have to have with this young lady to give you the ability to lean in, to still see the change in her? What type of perspective is necessary for that?
Man, I had to literally go into this student, this classroom, and it's something that I tried to, I think I mentioned it in a meeting recently, where it's just like, you just have to see everybody as God's child first, And so for me, it was just, despite whatever anybody has said about the student or any student, my thing is to just be loving towards them, whether they disrespect me and they rock with me or not, no matter how they may come across. My perspective has always been to just be loving towards any and every student that I've ever come across.
Wow.
And so I feel like with that, and I've learned, like I said, just in that a lot of times these students that are maybe acting crazy, they just need somebody to show them some attention and just be there and just hear them out for once. And so I feel like for me, that the perspective is just like literally just being love, and showing up as love for each and every student.
Yeah, bro. Thanks, man. What a powerful story of honestly you being a rescuer, a disruptor of a young person, and to hear a year later that young person is still doing well and improving and thriving in school is great. I want to just lean in on the power of perspective, because that thing really hit me of like, man, you and the school saw the exact same thing, and one was able to make a difference and one wasn't. Not to say the school hasn't done anything, but it's how you see things or see students matters. If you could look into that camera right there and just literally talk to a youth worker about why it's so important to see a student a certain way, and the impact that can come from that. Just what would you tell a youth worker that's maybe struggling with the student's behavior? How can they look at them differently?
Yeah, for any youth worker that's working out there, I would just tell you to really see any student. With this youth worker, let me just backtrack, because I don't know if this youth worker, are you talking in the Christian aspect? Because I'm about to say to see him as God's child first.
Yeah,
and I'm
okay.
Just had to make sure. I don't know. I don't know. This could be a secular youth.
No, but it could be either one.
But yeah, what I would tell any youth leader out there when it comes to working with students or just humans in general, but specifically for students, is just to see them as God's child first. Oftentimes these students are just looking for somebody to show them some attention and just be there with them and be really intentional. And I feel like if you just do that at the bare minimum, you'll see, change within these students. You'll see the things that you're looking for by just simply being intentional and showing them the attention that they may just be desiring. So yeah, man.
No, that's good. Well, thanks, Jock, for being a rescuer, man. Thanks for joining us here at RAG.
Absolutely.
And man, it's a joy and honor and a privilege to link arms with you. And I know you're a great coach, and so it's cool to see you coach in this context.
Yeah.
That's really, really dope. So really appreciate you, man. Thanks for being on the pod today.
Absolutely.
Yo, if you're out there, I want to challenge you that you too are and or could or should be a rescuer. And that rescuers don't all look the same, sound the same, come from the same place. They don't all work at the same place. And what could you do today, tomorrow, to be a rescuer, to disrupt somebody's status quo, to call them to a higher standard, to live within. We're committed to being rescuers, and I want to invite you to be a rescuer, to link arms with Rescuer Generation, to come alongside the work that we're doing. And in fact, we are looking for 1,000 friends to join us in the fight to rescue a generation. Join us. Wait, was that my bad, I got thrown off. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna start at join us. So just literally clip this one part. Okay. Join us in the fight to rescue a generation. We are looking for 1,000 friends to come alongside the work we're doing and commit to just $25 a month for the next 2 years. It will help us reach 100,000 students, and join us in the fight to rescue. Thanks for being a rescuer. Like, subscribe, follow, share. We appreciate y'all so much. Holler.